Australia, famous for its easygoing vibe and wild wildlife, made a serious move in 2018. It banned Huawei from building its new 5G network. This wasn't just about technology, it was a bold geopolitical statement, the first of its kind among the Five Eyes intelligence alliance. The concern: letting a Chinese tech giant with government ties build critical infrastructure was like handing the fox the keys to the henhouse. Australia chose security over business, siding with the US and risking its relationship with China, its biggest trading partner. The fallout wasn't just about phone towers. It hit industries like wine, costing jobs and billions in exports. This is the story of how a decision about phone towers led to a crisis for winemakers. Huawei isn't just a phone brand, it's a global giant in the telecommunications industry. As the world's largest telecom equipment maker, Huawei is responsible for building the networks that connect our lives, from the internet we browse to the calls we make. Fifth-generation technology, or 5G, is more than just about faster downloads and streaming. It represents a revolutionary leap in connectivity. 5G is the backbone of future innovations like smart cities, self-driving cars, and even remote surgeries, enabling a new era of technological advancement. Whoever builds this backbone holds immense power and access, potentially influencing the flow of information and data across the globe. Huawei's founder, Ren Zhengfei, was a former engineer in China's military, which adds a layer of complexity to the company's global operations. Chinese law requires companies to cooperate with state intelligence, raising concerns about the potential for government influence over Huawei. Western governments, particularly the US and Australia, feared that Huawei could be compelled to install backdoors in their equipment, enabling espionage or sabotage. Huawei has consistently denied these claims, offering transparency and code reviews to prove their innocence and commitment to security. However, for countries like the US and Australia, the perceived risk was too significant to ignore, leading to a cautious approach. The issue wasn't about having concrete proof, it was about the possibility and the potential consequences of a security breach. In the end, no amount of corporate reassurance could outweigh the potential threat that such access could pose to national security. That's why Australia, prioritizing its national security, ultimately decided to say no to Huawei's involvement in its 5G network. Australia's Huawei ban came under heavy US pressure. The US saw Huawei as a security threat and warned allies, use Huawei, and you risk losing access to American intelligence. For Australia, it was a choice between its top security ally and its biggest trading partner. The US made it clear, Five Eyes trust was on the line. Australia chose the alliance, prioritizing security over economic ties with China. The government called it a sovereign decision, but to China it looked like Australia caved to US demands. The die was cast. China was ready to retaliate. China's response was slow but devastating. Targeted economic retaliation. Barley, beef, coal, timber, and especially wine were hit with tariffs and bans. For wine, China imposed tariffs up to 212%, making Australian bottles unaffordable overnight. The official reason? Dumping. The real reason? Politics. Australian wine, once a premium product in China, became a pawn in a geopolitical chess game. The market evaporated instantly. Shipments halted, orders cancelled, and containers stranded. Years of relationship building with Chinese buyers vanished in a flash. The wine industry became collateral damage in a much bigger fight. For winemakers, it was like watching their life's work disappear. The message from China was clear. Political choices have economic consequences, and Australia's wine industry paid the price. The Australian wine industry is more than just a source of national pride. It's a $45 billion economic powerhouse that has shaped the identity of regions across the country. From the rolling hills of the Barossa Valley to the sun-drenched fields of Margaret River, wine is woven into the fabric of Australian life. This thriving sector supports over 160,000 jobs, providing livelihoods for families, sustaining small towns, and fueling local economies. Every bottle represents the hard work of countless Australians, from grape pickers and cellar hands to logistics teams and marketing experts. For years, China was the golden goose for Aussie winemakers. The Chinese market seemed insatiable, with demand for Australian reds and whites soaring to unprecedented heights. At its peak, China was buying more Australian wine than the next 4 export markets combined. making it the single most important destination for our wine exports. But when harsh tariffs were imposed, the boom ended overnight. Exports to China collapsed by a staggering 97% in just 1 year, leaving the industry reeling and scrambling for answers. Suddenly, Australia was drowning in unsold wine, especially red varieties, which had been favorites in China. Grape prices plummeted, leaving growers with little choice but to let fruit rot on the vine. Some fruit was left to rot, entire harvest wasted, and the heartbreak was felt in every rural community that depended on wine. Wineries faced storage crises, with tanks and warehouses overflowing. The financial strain was immense, and the uncertainty even greater. The industry's China dream had turned into a nightmare, almost overnight, shattering years of growth and optimism. The ripple effects were brutal: jobs lost, businesses shuttered, and rural economies shaken to their core. Communities that once thrived on wine were left facing an uncertain future, and all of this was triggered by a decision about telecom equipment made thousands of miles away, showing just how interconnected and vulnerable global trade can be. The wine glut became a stark symbol of the risks of over-reliance on a single market. It was a wake-up call for the entire industry, forcing a painful but necessary reckoning. The hangover was real, and it wasn't just about wine. It was about livelihoods, communities, and the future of Australian agriculture. The lesson: diversification isn't just smart business, it's survival. For Australian winemakers, the sudden imposition of tariffs by China was more than just a financial setback. It was a gut punch that reverberated through every corner of the industry. Years of hard work, relationship building, and investment seemed to unravel overnight, leaving many in shock and disbelief. Many wineries had meticulously tailored their entire operations to serve the Chinese market. Staff were hired specifically for their language skills and cultural knowledge. Labels were redesigned to appeal to Chinese consumers, and significant loans were taken out to purchase new equipment, all in anticipation of continued growth and prosperity in China. But then, almost overnight, their best customers simply vanished. Orders were canceled en masse, shipments were left stranded, and warehouses began to fill with unsold wine that had nowhere to go. Redirecting billions of dollars worth of wine to new markets isn't as simple as flipping a switch. The US and UK, two of the world's largest wine markets, are already crowded and fiercely competitive, with established brands fighting for every inch of shelf space. Breaking into these markets takes years of effort, marketing, and relationship building. And even then, the prices Australian winemakers could command were often much lower than what they had enjoyed in China, squeezing already thin profit margins. For smaller family-run wineries, the impact was especially devastating. Many were left dangerously exposed, with little financial cushion to absorb the shock. Some were pushed right to the brink of collapse, forced to close their doors or drastically scale back operations. Staff who had been with wineries for years were laid off. Equipment was sold at auction to cover debts, and desperate attempts were made to find new buyers in unfamiliar markets. Cold calls and emails became the new normal as winemakers scrambled to keep their businesses afloat. The harsh lesson was clear: betting everything on a single market is a dangerous gamble, especially when that market is controlled by a government that can shut the door without warning. Diversification isn't just a business strategy, it's a necessity for survival. The once booming China market had become a bust almost overnight, leaving a trail of broken dreams and financial hardship in its wake. Suddenly, the global ambitions of the Australian wine industry were thrown into crisis. Years of growth and optimism gave way to uncertainty and soul-searching about the future. The industry learned the hard way that true resilience comes from spreading risk and building relationships in multiple markets. Diversify or risk disaster. This became the new mantra for Australian winemakers. And as the world watched this dramatic turn of events unfold, the story of Australian wine became a cautionary tale for exporters everywhere, a powerful reminder of the risks and rewards of global trade. This isn't just about numbers, it's about people. Grape growers, often on family farms, faced ruin as grape prices collapsed. Seasonal workers, truck drivers, and bottling plant staff lost jobs as the industry shrank. In small towns, the impact was devastating. Less work meant less money circulating locally. One cellar hand story secure job, overtime, expansion. Then, after the China market closed, layoffs and uncertainty. The human cost of the Huawei ban was real and painful. Political decisions made in distant capitals had direct consequences for ordinary Australians. The politicians and security advisors kept their jobs, but the growers, workers, and families paid the price. In global politics, it's often everyday people who become collateral damage. Wine wasn't the only casualty. China's retaliation hit barley, beef, lobsters, coal, and timber. Barley growers lost their biggest market overnight, accused of dumping. Beef exports were blocked over technical issues, and live lobsters died in customs delays. Coal and timber shipments were halted, stranding ships and hurting regional economies. Each move was calculated to inflict pain on key Australian industries. The lesson: economic dependence on a single authoritarian partner is risky. Australia's prosperity had come with hidden strings. The Huawei decision revealed just how tight those strings could get. Years later, Australia has a 5G network built by Western companies and a secure intelligence alliance. From a security perspective, the government claims victory, but the economic cost was staggering. Billions lost, jobs gone, and industries destabilized. The relationship with China is only now starting to recover, but the golden era is over. The saga is a case study in the clash between national security and economic prosperity. Was the risk of Huawei worth the price paid by winemakers and workers? Australia traded economic certainty for security assurance. Historians will debate if it was the right call. For those who lost everything, the answer is painfully clear. The hangover from Australia's big gamble still lingers.